Being rather umbrageous with umbrellas, this is your look at the new Diamond Select Gallery Diorama statue of the Penguin. This gallery diorama of the Penguin is based on his appearance in DC Comics. It is made of high-quality PVC and features detailed sculpting and paint applications. It was designed by Cesar and sculpted by Alterton. Before we set our peepers on getting a closer look at the gallery diorama statue of the Penguin, obviously the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall the statue actually stands. I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that provided the sample of Penguin that we're having a look at in this review. It's currently available right now in comic book stores and online as well, so get to stepping if you'd like to pick up this one for yourself. Penguin stands 8.2 inches in height, so he's about 8.5, almost 8.5 inches in height. Switching that to centimeters, and exactly, he stands 21 centimeters in height. Something I don't really tend to do too often when it comes to statues is compare them with other statues that we've had a look at. But simply because we've just recently had a look at the gallery diorama statue of Pamela Isley, I can move over Oswald Cobblepot, and I can bring in the Poison Ivy that we had a look at just recently. The reasoning why I did also want to bring this one in was also because I feel like in the last little while, not only are we getting these Batman Rogues gallery diorama statues, but they all sort of seem to be roughly in the same scale to one another. I think the Bane is probably a little bit too big, but if we are looking at, for example, the Scarecrow we just recently looked at, and I think the upcoming Two-Face is going to be roughly about the same scale to all of these. So if you put them on a shelf, one after the other, one right next to each other, I don't think the scale is off that much, that you could really believe that they're characters from the same universe, or at least the same scale universe. That was one fine Poison Ivy. One thing I have noticed here about Penguin is it seems he's very heavily influenced by Batman Returns. Not only with the outfit he's wearing, but also the fact that you'll probably see waddling around, although he's not really waddling around right now, is a little tiny penguin with a rocket strapped to his back. Ergo, Batman Returns. Actually, one of my favorites, if not my favorite, Batman movie, Batman Returns. That being said, let's go ahead and pick the statue up. I just finished talking about it, so we might as well get a closer look at it. There is the little said rockets on the back of said penguin. Very much similar to what we saw in Batman Returns. Again, you would just saw more of these. You can see that Cobblepot is standing on top of a two-tier floor. The way that they've brushed paint along it really has given it that look and feel like it's actually marble. I really do like the way that that looks. Even the white aspects aren't clean by any stretch of the imagination. Like the black is a good solid shiny black. You can see as I'm putting the light against it. But even like the areas, the squares of white get afforded a little bit of additional smudging of black. Again, really lends itself well to the idea that this looks like marbled flooring. Of course, like every other case, I want to show you the other side here just to show you that it's molded in white plastic. And rather interesting footprints right there. These are, of course, where Penguin's feet are firmly rooted in place. Again, you're really not going to see the bottom end of it. I don't really know why I usually show you in this review, but it's simply just to show you what the underside looks like, and then we can move on from there. Going back to the Penguin, though, the Penguin is very nicely sculpted and painted. I think I probably would have darkened him slightly, and I think maybe the reasoning why they didn't is so that he's a different color from the squares of black. That's my guess is, at least. Even he is a lighter color to the color of jackets that Penguin is wearing. But I probably would have turned that down even further and made this a little bit darker. To be fair, it does give us an opportunity to see the sculpting that they incorporated to the Penguin itself. But again, I probably would have just darkened that ever so slightly. Just turned it down one. Just one. The paint is nicely done on the backpack here, the rocket strapped to his back. I feel like on the bottom here, they probably could have added one more stripe of red because there's a little bit of a real open area where there's no additional color. I would have added just a little corner of red right there just to finish that off rather nicely. But it's neat and fun, the idea that we get ourselves a penguin. Influenced perhaps, yes, by Batman Returns. Whatever the case may be, I'm just thrilled the fact that we actually do get ourselves a rocket pack penguin actually displayed on the display base along with Oswald Cobblepot. While I may feel the statue takes some cues from Batman Returns, certainly is not the case when we have a look at Penguin's face. It definitely does not have the more mutated look that Danny DeVito's Penguin had in the Batman Returns movie. You still get what you would traditionally think Penguin to look like. I mean, when I think of Penguin, I think more of a character that resembles like this. A very long, pointed schnoz, very short and squat, and of course the calling cards of like his top hats, the cigar, and of course his monocle. The neat thing about the monocle is, hopefully you can see it or not, it's actually a circular separate piece of clear plastic. No, they didn't actually have this as part of his face. You can see it's completely separate altogether. That's a nice touch. I really like that they did that. The darker colors of his face normally would be jarring on a regular character, and yet somehow works very well for Penguin. Like the colors of his face are almost like a very gray-based color. So like even the areas on the sides, the shadowing, for example, are very much dark purplish brown. And even like the areas of his lips are all very sickly and dark and pink. Again, it really does give him a very dark demeanor, but I find it actually works well for Penguin. If this was, say, a different character, I would say there would be a little bit too much paint that they've incorporated to the statue. And yet again, it works so very well for Penguin. I think I've actually worked with a guy that looked like this. No, not the top hat, not the long furred trench coat, not certainly the cigar, and certainly not the monocle, but the face itself bears somewhat of a slight resemblance. Anyways, as for the top hat, as you can see, it's been painted with a very nice shiny coat of black, a very similar black to the same black that was used on the squares here. Now, of course, when we move a little bit further back to the hat, you can see there's that band of violet purple. I really like the color of Penguin's face. I didn't think I liked it initially, but I think looking at it, it really does work well. Definitely would not have worked well for other characters. Of course, you've got the fur-trimmed jacket, a very long-tailed jacket. He's got the fur on the cuffs of his sleeves, the fur on, of course, the collar as well. You can see all the real nice additional coloring of brown that they've added to it. It's not even really quite even brown. It's almost kind of got like a rusted red that they've applied to that. It's enough just to add a little bit of additional depth, a little bit of additional contrast of color. I really like the fact they added it. They still kept this white, which I think is the best route they could have gone, and only really darkened the either side of it, really. On either edge of it is where that darker red comes into play. Of course, everybody, I'm sure, all this time has been looking at the umbrella that Penguin is holding. And it seems also with a lot of these gallery statues, I know just recently I compared it with the Pamela Isley, or the Poison Ivy statue. It's one of actually the only exceptions so far I've seen. But all the other gallery statues, notably the Scarecrow and the Bane, all seem to have a batarang in it. Now you remember with the Bane, he was stepping on one. With the Scarecrow, the batarangs were actually wedged into the ground. Now here, it's actually lodged on the end point of his umbrella. Now, the only one that they didn't do, unless I've missed it somewhere, they didn't do it with Pamela Isley. So it's interesting, actually, that all of them so far, except for that one exception of Poison Ivy, all seem to have a batarang incorporated into it. I didn't mention it with the Bane review, and I obviously didn't mention it with Scarecrow because we looked at him first. Interesting, though, that they incorporated a batarang with every other release, except for, again, Poison Ivy. You can see that this umbrella is made of two colors, both the black and the white, and it's stripped right down the middle. I like it that they put it right here and didn't actually move the black over, because when you look at it from this side, the white is a good contrast to the dark colors that they put in the jacket and his button-up vest. But here, if you look at it from the bottom, because he has so much white on the sleeves and the cuffs and, of course, the gloves, adding the black there seems to be a good place to divide it, because then you can see more of the hands standing out against the backdrop of the black. Nice little touch on their part. I don't know if it's just me, but looking at Penguin's lower half, yes, let's draw everyone's attention to Penguin's lower half. Because he's wearing pinstriped pants done in the color of purple, it very much reminds me of like the old Superpowers Penguin, which I believe had a lower half done in purple and his jacket was in blue, if memory serves me correctly. I don't know if, of course, they've gotten the inspiration for his color choice by that old toy, but if they did, fine work on their part by making this lower half purple. You can see it's got some good natural wrinkles developing where wrinkles would normally develop on a person's pants. And as we get a little bit further down, we get down to Penguin's shoes. Now here I was expecting spats. Spats, I believe, are the little white sections that cover over the top of the shoes. He doesn't actually have it here. Normally it's also something that Joker wears a lot. He wears spats on his shoes. I don't know why I was just expecting that spats would have been something that they would have included on the statue. Instead, what they did do is that they had two separate areas of his shoe. One more raised area right here, and then, of course, the rest of the shoe behind it. I feel like this also would have been an opportunity that they could have gone in and added some additional color. Perhaps followed the same suit they did with the jacket buttons. They could maybe incorporate that gold as well down to the fronts of the shoes so that they weren't all simply black. Despite the fact that they are just simply black, I do think that the shoes turned out nice. Could they have used spats? Yeah, sure, why not? But I do think that the shoes turned out rather nice on this particular piece. Lastly, we'll just spin this around so you guys can see the whole back of his jacket, something I completely have omitted so far to the review up to this point. But I really do like the way that the jacket flows. Something I always talk about when it comes to these gallery statues. I like when it comes to capes. Capes more than anything else. Capes, they have a good natural drift to it, the way the cape naturally would droop and drape on a character, especially when you've got a wind coming from one side. While this isn't a case where I would say wind is coming from one area, it's probably more so coming from the front of Penguin. But I do like the way that the bottom of his jacket billows out, just on the sides right there. Really like the way they did that. And of course, like the top of his collar, he does have that darker color right here. You could say that it's just slightly more dirty, or it could also just be shadowing. Whatever the case may be, it looks like it's actually two colors brought in here. That kind of peach color right here, and then a more darker version of it slightly right along the top. Something else I really do like about this is that there's a trim right atop, right above the fur. You can see it runs across the full stretch from one end of the jacket all the way, of course, to the other. I really like the direction that Diamond Select went with when it came to the release of Penguin as a gallery diorama statue. One thing I did praise them for doing when it came to their Scarecrow gallery statues is that they designed a character very classic. Like if I was to open up the pages of an 80s Batman comic, that's the kind of Scarecrow I would expect to see. When it comes to, of course, the Penguin's release, Penguin gets a little different. Penguin doesn't necessarily feel like an 80s Penguin, but he does have a lot of elements you can see that they've pulled from different source material. Comics, movies, and perhaps video games all sort of get mushed together to give us this design of Penguin, and yet it works really well. I think the biggest inspiration for this particular statue is Batman Returns. And I don't say that as a fault. Batman Returns is my favorite Batman movie. But the way he's dressed, and of course the fact that he's got a rocket-packed penguin waddling around in front of him, very much you get those vibes of Batman Returns when you look at it. But what he doesn't have is Danny DeVito's disfigured face or his flipper hands. Kind of glad that they didn't go full Batman Returns with their release, because they might as well then just release a Danny DeVito penguin. Ooh, I hope that's maybe something that they would consider down the road. But this one doesn't feel as much comic-rooted as Scarecrow, and yet it's a very familiar look and feel of Penguin when you're having him on display. He works still extremely well when you pair him next to Poison Ivy, the statue that we just recently had a look at. And I don't think he stands out, so if you do put him with the rest of the Batman statues, I don't think you're going to be looking at this one and thinking, ooh, that's not really the same universe Penguin. I think, again, he works really well and works well with the rest of the Rogues Gallery that Diamond Select have released so far. That being said, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of the gallery diorama statue of the Penguin. And do you feel like he has a lot of inspirations probably pulled from Batman Returns? A big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select that provided the sample of the Penguin that we had a look at in this review. If you'd like to pick up this one for yourself, it's available right now in comic book stores and online as well. If you are new to this channel and liking the content you're seeing, just know that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when new videos will pop up. And if you haven't already done it, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. There's going to be a whole ton of Diamond Select reviews coming your way. And even more to that, there's going to be a whole ton of gallery diorama statues coming your way as well. So as always, keep your peepers peeled. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.